Well, hello again and welcome in. Wherever you are today and wherever you're listening from, I'm so happy to have you over to feast upon God's Word together. Get your plate ready today and take a seat. It's the 44, which is Matthew 4:4. Man cannot live on bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Let's eat. I'm still your host, Jed Yancey, and wow, what a fun week it's been around my house and within my family. As many of you already know, Megan gave birth to a beautiful little girl, Anna Lee, last Wednesday night. And so I guess technically fun shouldn't be the word. It has been for me, but let me switch that around to say maybe more appropriately that it's been interesting. And at 38 years old, Megan and I are both 38. I've said to Megan several times during her pregnancy that, this might be our last shot to experience this together. And I've given that a lot of thought, and a lot of reflection the last few months, just really trying to enjoy the moment that ultimately came about last Wednesday. And while, yes, we are not sleeping well. And I'm sure, yes, many more sleepless nights will come. I'm just trying to soak it all in for what may be potentially the last time of holding one of our own that's that small into the wee hours of the night. But really, today's episode came about after a prayer and then a conversation a few hours after Annalie was born. And all 50,000 members of my family had come and met her after hours of waiting, some of them traveling as far as Tampa and coming up and waiting for a while. And then everyone getting to see her and holding her, in some cases crying, which, not gonna lie, me too. Like, I couldn't even talk to anyone that came in to visit for a little while. I was just so emotionally charged and hit to my core. Like, it's just so incredible how you think that your life is made up of so many people that you love and that you care for so deeply that you think sometimes, there's just no way there's any more room in here for anyone else. And then it's like, through this experience of a baby being born, there's this takeover on the inside. And there goes God getting to work and finding room to place that sweet child right there with all the others that you love so much. But, anyways, today's episode took shape right after the night that Annalie was born, as I'm sitting there and I'm holding her, and I'm just trying to think about the last 9 months. Like, we're out of the delivery room, and we're settled in our room, and there I am. I'm holding her, and Megan's asleep, and we're in the hospital, and all I can think about is, I mean, the last 9 months, how fast it's gone. Thinking about Megan and all she's gone through, and then thinking about the day, which was really slow and long and required a lot of patience, but then at that point it's over. And then, of course, I start to think about this child, and I think about the future of our family and the future for her. But inside of all of that, I kept going back to something my dad prayed while we were all 50,000 of us in the room, in the delivery room, which surprisingly they let everyone back there. But before everyone left, we all gathered up, and my dad asked if he could pray, and he did. And part of his prayer was that he was just so thankful for the reminder of God's creation through moments like these. And that caused me a lot of thought about God's creation. And then a little bit later, after everyone left, it's just me and my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, Megan, and a baby. And we're sitting there, and my father-in-law is holding Annalie, and he's crying. And I know he's thinking all these things as he's crying. And then we started to talk about how it's just so far beyond us, how you could reflect back on 9 months of a woman being pregnant and all that's gone on over the course of those 9 months, and then to be inside of this moment where you're holding this precious little gift from God. And it's just beyond us how someone could be in that moment and not just be in complete and total awe of his creation. I would say so many times for me, and probably for most of us, those moments when we're in awe of God's creation and we're reminded of his creation, it's maybe when we're at the beach and we see a sunset, or we pay attention to the waves that just keep coming and rolling along the seashore. We're high above the earth in an airplane and you look out the window and you see for miles, or maybe you've gone out hiking and you reach the peak of that mountain and you look out again and able to see for miles. But man, nothing hits harder by way of a reminder of God's creation than the birth of a child. And I'm sure most of you know this from the Psalms. It caused my mind to go back to the Psalm. Psalm 139, beginning there in verse 13, reads this way, as David says, "You formed my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well." And what's so incredible, I think, about this reminder of a child being born as it relates to God's creation, as I consider all that's gone on in my life in the last week, or I guess even going back 9 months ago, coupled with this psalm, I started to think, man, I don't spend nearly enough time thinking on and thanking God for his wonderful works and for his creation and the many ways he shows me how great and how powerful and how wonderful he is. And I wonder also, as I think of this psalm, what would then be left for me to say in contrast with what David says here, as he says, his soul knows it very well, it being these wonderful works. What's even more mind blowing is to take it to the next level, and that we don't even know everything, nor will we ever know everything that there is to know about the activity and the creation of God. Ecclesiastes 11 in verse 5 reads this way, that just as you do not know the path of the wind, and you don't know how bones are formed in the womb of a pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of God who makes all things. I read stuff like that, and I guess in the middle of where I am right now in my life, and I think, wow, what a great God we serve. How wonderful are his works. And I know what my last week has looked like. And it's caused me to give a great amount of consideration to how wonderful are his works and whether or not my soul knows that very well and thinks about that often and thanks him for it each time I pray, like my dad did just a week ago. So today's episode, if you check the time, you see it's a super short one today, because your 44 today requires a whole lot more action on your part and on my part than just listening to me talk. Your 44 today, no matter your circumstances, is to consider something in your life that is wonderful and meditate on that thing. And like David, let your soul know it very well. You may be like me, and it's the birth of a child or children in general for you. It could be your life, might be your spouse or a relationship or the church, or hey, maybe you're just out on a walk right now. And every time you go on a walk, you take for granted the very breath that God is allowing you to breathe. Your 44 today is to stop what you're doing and stop where you are and thank the one and praise the one whose works and whose creation is wonderful. And most of all, let your soul know it very well. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening today. More than that, thank you so much for the calls, the texts, the messages, the food over the last week or so. Megan and I are both stuffed and also super appreciative of everyone so much. Speaking of food, until next week, keep on eating upon God's word. Another one of his wonderful works that we should all long to be able to say, my soul knows it very well. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next week.